All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Paranormal Experienced with your host, Kat Hobson. This is where you're going to find all things unexplained, ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot and cryptids, the whole shebang right here, exclusively on the UNX Network. Here's my good friend, my sweet friend. She's way down south on the coast tonight. So she's bringing it to us from her. What should we call it, Kat? You're you're safely ensconced way down south in your down south layer. How about that?
Yeah, I am coming to you from way down south. I am in Gulf Shores, and I'm so excited to be here. You know, now we have all the things going on because my guest tonight is Teal Gray. And y'all are going to just have to see my cords. But I tell you what, Teal is one of my favorite people. She is a sacred site traveler. She has written so many books and collaborated on even more. She has worked with Mark Fultz, who is the host of Universal Truths. He is brilliant. He is a working psychic who has a shop in Milton, Florida, called Gypsy Rose. So if you get to go over that way, you're going to need to check him out. He's brilliant. Now, I think that one of my favorite things about Teal Gray is her kindness. She is mystical, magical, probably a little mythical, depending on her day. But she is someone who I have so enjoyed since we have become friends. And I hope that you enjoy her too. Teal, I am so glad to welcome you.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It's great to be with you.
Thanks for being had. It's great having you. You know, I am. Go ahead.
I'll be had by you anytime.
Thank you. You know, I love our opportunities to talk. We haven't had many lately. And
No.
you know, you've been transitioning and living life and loving, grands just like me. And, you know, I can't think of a better person just to sit down, kick back, have my Coke, and catch up with.
Well, I appreciate that. I tell you, it's always so fun to talk to you because you're so well-rounded. You just are into everything from, no matter what I'm talking about, you're like, and that is where I've been. You know, you've been everywhere. We've lived similar lives, and so that's a lot of fun.
We do seem to follow a path, don't we?
Yeah.
And the connectivity between us is one of my favorite things because I'm going to drop that one. Your energy is so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And you know, you deal with things sometimes that kind of freak me out a little bit.
Yeah.
But you are very well, I don't know if trained is the right word. Your knowledge base is so great that you cope with things that most people would not.
Well, thank you. And I think that it's a little bit of a combination of training because, just searching, like you and I are both lifelong learners and educating ourselves in different areas. And then through so many years of just wondering since childhood, what is this? What is going on? And then thinking, well, I just keep searching. And is it good? Is it bad? What is good and bad? Discerning between good and evil. And through so many years of doing that, and then I actually went to, as you know, to seminary, seminary, not the $20 for 20 minutes thing.
I said $20 for 20 minutes, but go ahead. No.
And so I have that background of so much study and immersion in all the different religions and faiths and traditions and superstitions and all these different things. And I sort of love the way that all the different religions, people will think, oh, they're so different, but
Yes.
not.
You're
It
not.
layered them all on top of each other, the similarities, the differences, but layered in such a way you could see through that and have those top each other. They're actually very similar. It's just verbiage, most of it. Honestly, the stories are so transcendent of time
Yes.
and locations and everything. And the stories are the same. Of course, the heroes of the story are different,
Yeah.
and the names are different, but the stories, they're the same. And so I love that because I've always wanted to be sort of a bridge to people in a way that they could understand, look, you're more similar than you're different. Let's let everybody have their thought and their beliefs. And who's to say who's right and wrong, right? So
No, they are very, when you get down to it, most conflict that is religion based is among religions who are brotherhoods.
mhm,
And it's just, it gets so scary because the warring factions absolutely hate each other,
yeah,
but
yeah.
their histories are the same. Their stories are the same.
So sometimes that is the thing. It's so much history, and people, even if people will tell you, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, I this or that. But if you speak to them, things that they don't even realize are in their psyche, generational pull and thought and learning and teaching comes into factor just from your location, where you're brought up and everything. So sometimes even people who think I'm being open-minded, it's the other person. They have things, in their psychological background that make them just anti this or that. So we all have to just take a breath. And I got so tired of eating crow because I would even hear experiences people would have, paranormal experiences, and I would think that's crazier than a bad B movie. And to me, they're like, "Oh, Teal, you just want to get taught so many things," and they would give me a lesson in it, and I would have to eat crow. And I thought, I'm so tired of the feathers. I'm just going to learn.
It does not taste good.
Don't taste good. And then also, when it happens, you find yourself in the same situation other people are in, where you're just like, I know sounds crazy. I know it's unbelievable, and yet here's what just happened. You know.
I know,
So,
right?
yeah. And on the other little end of it, just quickly, some people that are religious and would love to go to church, even if they're spiritual, not religious. I don't care about that verbiage, but they're not welcome the minute that they say, I've had paranormal experiences, or I believe in UFOs, or I think this or that. All of a sudden, that wall comes down, and they're not so much invited to the tea parties. So it goes
That is
both
the
ways.
absolute truth.
Yeah, people
I
have
mean,
had back.
just boom, right there.
Yeah, I mean, they love you, and then I got to tell you, I bet you I could go in somewhere and they'd be, oh great, oh you've been to seminary, oh you're doubly ordained, oh that's amazing, da 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 da. We'd love to help in the church. Oh great, well I also write paranormal, and this that. I would have a torch chasing me out the door. I guarantee you. So
Have you ever been chased out?
no,
Not literally, but
no, not literally. They've always, I've had a couple of religions that were like, we really don't get into that. I said, well, it's in the Bible, like a lot. It's a lot in there. Yeah, we skip over that. I said, well, the angels, light and dark, and the demons. Oh, we don't really get into the D word. And I said, well, yeah, but God does.
they're into you.
All the disciples did, and they spoke of ghosts. Even Jesus said, touch me, I'm not a ghost.
Right.
Paul said that at that time. If you research so many different things like I have through the years, at that time, not just biblical, just like it would be in Entertainment Today, People Magazine, or whatever talk show. it was so common that they saw ghosts or believed in transitions and reincarnations, all these different melting pots of religion, or beliefs, if you will, because back then they didn't think of it as a religion, it was just their belief. Uh, that's why he said that in the boat, touch me, I'm not a ghost. Because it was such a familiar thing that he would have been afraid that he was seeing a ghost. And so this was something contemporary to the time. So
Absolutely.
I think if people, really get into not worrying about anything other than the subject you're trying to learn about, don't get into all the little details of it. Just what are we talking about? Let's just keep it there. Let's not worry about, generational anything. Let's just talk about this. And when you do that, if you can get people still enough to do that, the conversations are amazing. And then by 30, 45 minutes in, you have people who were totally separate sides of the subjects being like knee to knee. And can you believe, yes, 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 this, it's amazing and it's beautiful. And I've seen that a number of times in my travels, and even in being an interfaith, minister, you're with a lot of different religions from all over the world. And it's just, I think it's beautiful when that bridge happens and everybody comes together.
It's really one of those things that we're both Southern, okay?
Yeah.
Texas and Alabama.
Yes.
Bible Belt.
Oh, yeah.
Incredibly so in my case, because, we don't have a lot of diversity of ideas.
Right.
And when you do develop them, they're frowned on. But I was raised Baptist and Presbyterian and Methodist, and friends who are Catholic. I've studied Buddhism, and I am very diverse with my thinking. I mean, my faith is that, I believe that he's who he says he is. He did what he did. I don't think he did it just for certain individuals. I think that all of humanity has their own part of that story, and practice it.
Yeah.
And so, when I sit there, and on top of that, I'm a paranormal investigator. I'm a ufologist. I research everything. I write about everything. I am, which if I ever get that book published, everyone will get to read, right? But it's just fascinating to me that if you speak with people who are very into ufology, if you speak to abductees, they don't know who's abducting them. They don't know who's coming from the heavens. They don't know, are these 4 horsemen? Did they come on a horse that looks like a dish? But there's so much stuff out there. And then if you start getting into areas where you have traveled, visiting sacred sites, going into other countries, you've been everywhere. And you get a lot more communication than I get relevant to that. Although I will say I have started traveling, and I'm very excited by that. But when I was in Scotland, and you love Scotland, when I was in Scotland, one of the things that I found so interesting was when I went into Greyfriars Kirk, it was something that there were so many different religious
fractions,
connotations to it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was surprised by, and you used to collect this. I don't know if you still have it because we have talked about that in the past. But the death say it again.
Memento Mori.
Thank you. Yes. And when I was in the old cemetery that generally is locked, and they let us in, we had a fantastic docent who was taking us around. I saw that everywhere.
Yeah.
There's that terminology everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was surprised by that. So
you're in such a, we don't have that here. Such an old, you're surrounded with that history, which is amazing and beautiful. And I do have an extensive Memento Mori collection. That I will tell you. Here's some crow for you if you want. You're going to get all my crow secrets here of all my eating crow and feathers and spitting them out.
I love your crow.
I get so much crow. But I originally was like, no, 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 nope. Because I have enough trouble, psychic medium, everything else, through childhood, through life. I just try to keep everything a little bit arm's length, and I don't need to be bringing anything in. So my thought was like, that is not something I'm going to collect. Yes, I have houses filled with antiques and things, so I've probably brought in my own sort of. That was sort of a pinnacle of it. That's
Yes.
people's hair and teeth and bones sometimes, and that's very intimate.
You're a little freaky, Teal.
Gonna do it. So, of course, they thought, oh, this is going to be hilarious. Watch this. And so the heavens started playing chess with me. And I got into a situation where I was not going to have anything to do with that. But they were selling this whole family. It was generations, and it went over, oh gosh, let's see. It was 5 generations, of family. And they could not get enough money for the whole batch. So they were going to break it up after it's been together all the time. And I felt just like, oh my gosh, I have to save the family. I have to keep the family together, right?
Yes.
Really felt it. My mind did not engage. Just my heart was in action, which is really how we should operate, right? It's from the heart, not so much the mind. And my heart took over, and I thought,
but yes,
there's no way we're going to split up this family. And so I bought everything. And then, am I done? And then those situations kept happening, and even people would contact me and say, oh, Teal, we know you like to keep the families together. Here's this, this, and this. And I don't know what to do at auction. They say they just put them up and they may or may not go together. We're going to do them all individually. And I have over 100 pieces now.
Yes.
A lot. And I have not just jewelry, not just, clothing, not just teeth and bones. I have so many things. Beautiful, intricate hair, weaving, and I have rings that are a watch bands, fobs.
Are the rings of the hair?
Yes. And pretty
out of town.
And it's so tiny. They used to have watchmakers would do it because they're so used to these tiny little intricate things. And back in the day, watchmakers were the biggest people doing it. And then of course, that expanded. But I have, the Dance of Death art I have some going back 300 years, very old pieces. I have grave rubbings from everywhere. Just some of it is very, very old. And I just don't know what to do now because I thought, okay, I'm going to sell this property and move, a couple hours away. And of course, this property's very well known. Both houses, the property all haunted. They've been on a lot of books and shows and stuff. But I thought, it'd be nice to go to just a regular house, just a clean house, just nothing in it, and people.
That's not going to happen.
Exactly what I
hear. You are a light unto the spirits, so that is.
But I just had thought, but then now I don't know what to do because so many people are interested. They're like, "Oh, you're going to sell that collection," but they don't want all of it. They want pieces of it, and I'm like, but the whole point was keeping the family together. So I don't know what'll happen. Mark Fultz, our good buddy, he thinks I should maybe open a little museum.
I think you should open a museum, and he and I have not spoken about that. Although we did break bread this weekend, but I would. Why would you not? I mean, it would be out of your home.
Yeah.
Which is the primary.
True. Yeah.
Because of grants and everything else.
See that because a lot of it is jewelry pieces, let's say, but there's a lot of wall art. There's a lot of paintings. I said grave rubbings. I even have a pair of shoes from dock out of the, death camp. And so
I did not know you had those.
do. And I did, that was, there's a very heavy energy with those. And I keep them in
Well, you think? Holy wow.
a glass around it and different things. And I pray about it a lot. And I have thought those probably should be in a definitely a museum, but they even have teeth and bone in the, in the soul of them because of walking around the death
Oh
camp.
my God.
So yeah, and I
What
got
kind of
those.
activity is involved around those? I'm
I'm sorry.
sorry.
No, go
What
ahead.
kind of activity is involved with those?
Well, gosh, it's hard to pinpoint who's doing what. And, this big omelet, I guess I can flip over to it at some point. But the last time we were on the show, you kept saying, "What is that tapping? It's pretty loud." It was the knob on the omelet that's across the room knocking, moving.
They wanted to play.
Yeah, well, we were talking about the omelet, and
Yes.
it came out of an old castle, and it's very active. But the shoes, I got to tell you, the shoes were almost like have a warmth to them, like because I respect them, I love them. I have some Jewish blood in me, not a lot, but it wouldn't matter if I didn't. You can still respect something and love it.
Absolutely, yes.
Actually, do. And so they're nothing bad, but you can feel them. People can feel something before they even walk in the room, in that area. I keep them separate, but so many things. I've got, jewelry that people died with, their blood still on it, from everything from the Civil War to, who knows what. So I think maybe people, I will say, in taking it touring, people have gained a greater understanding, because usually they have that, "Oh, this is gross," or "This is awful." And then they hear the people's stories and understand that was not like now. You didn't have 100 or 1,000 photos of you and them or anything. Like many
Yes.
times, depending on, your financial situation, there would be nothing. Not a painting, unless somebody in your family could sketch or something. There
True.
something, valuable to have a painting. And then later to even have a death photo, that was a big thing, and it was not common. And then of course it's grown obviously through the years. But when you understand, I think as horrible as COVID was and still is, the understanding of things happening so fast and so out of our control, we have sanitized death in such a way, because through the years, instead of us washing the body and having it in the living room and having wakes and being very involved from the point of the person being ill or killed some way, and dressing the home or taking to, the parlor or whatever, they all die in the hospital. They die in the nursing home. Everything is an arm's length away, right? So
Until it's not.
Until it's not. And some of these situations, unfortunately, happened so immediate, so close, and so fast. And people were involved in a way that really shook the world and brought some understanding back to the older times of
Well, I was with both of my parents as they died fairly close together in time. My dad went first. He was having TIAs and all kinds of problems and couldn't recover. They just progressed. And then my mom was hospitalized during COVID after a fall in her retirement home. And she had to be fed, and they didn't feed her in the hospital for 10 days.
Mhm.
So they left the food in the room, though. How cruel was that?
Yeah.
But I wound up being involved in both of their deaths, not anticipating that becoming my role.
Mhm.
And I will always be extraordinarily thankful that I had that opportunity. And my stepmother is who gave me the chance to be with my dad. And then I wound up being my mom's person. But it's just one of those things that I had never experienced a death up close. And when my dad died, his caregiver came and grabbed me and said, "He just passed. He can hear you. Go."
Hmm.
Because I was just in the next room and had fallen asleep. And then with my mom, she died eyeball to eyeball with me, up close, like, you know. So that was, I'd never seen that.
Yeah.
And I probably could have gone a long time not seeing that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it was an honor to have been put in the position to be there because, you know, she brought me in. I was with her when she went out. So it's like a balance thing. And I don't think that we get in our society that balance very much anymore, as you were talking about.
No, and while that is a beautiful moment, it's the hardest moment, you
It's
know,
a freaky as all get out moment
because also
because,
if anybody's, you know, it's everybody has their end is different, of course,
yeah,
but the similarity that is so crazy for people who are not used to any of this is that I mean they're just like you and I, and then it's talking, and you know if they can they're alive, and then in the
who's
next
talking?
they're not.
Yes.
They're not. They're gone. They're somewhere else, right?
And
So
the
it's
image of it, I'm sorry,
oh
but because you and I haven't talked about this
no,
since that happened, but what was astounding to me, and I'm sure that you have found this in the course of your studies, is that one moment we are eyeball to eyeball, very close, and she's looking at me, asking how, right? And then the next minute, there is nobody home.
yeah,
It was literally, biblically speaking, the blink of an eye,
right,
and
yeah,
she was gone.
mhm,
And there was no hesitation. There was no anything. It was just like shaboom, shebang.
right, yeah.
So
Well,
I was shocked by that.
and in the Bible it says, you know, out of the body by the Lord, right? You're right. They go from there to there. And here's the thing, I think where it gets a little tricky.
Okay.
Gone from the body, present with the Lord. That's true. But you also, now this is just my experiences, so we don't need a bunch of bad email. But you know, it it seems to be like 3 days to 3 weeks. It depends on the situation, but usually you have a time when they're gone and they're being, you know, genuinely loved and held and helped to understand what's happening. Even if they know what's happening, you need healing. You need, you know, they're upset. That
Freaked out would be the word I would have used for her.
what?
Freaked out.
Well, yeah,
I mean, she had great faith. She had a great belief in her faith.
yeah.
And she was still surprised.
Listen, people are surprised at me being, you know, with all my experiences, being a skeptical believer. They're like, how is that possible? I don't know. It's how I'm wired. My first thought is someone breaking in, not, oh, Aunt Tilly must be coming through the window. No, it's
Yes.
breaking in. Do you have a raccoon? I mean, go be normal and
Are
figure
you loaded? I mean, you know.
it.
Yeah.
You know, from the South, we are. But like but in a way, that's better to me because so much happens. If you can explain it away, you
Mhm.
know, whether it's electrical stuff or plumbing or just a lot of different things can be explained away.
Yes.
However, it makes it where that 1%, I don't care if you can explain 99%, 1% that you can't should keep everybody up at night because it is crazy, terrifying. And here's what I was saying just a minute ago. People will say, if you're seeing a ghost or if you're talking with anything or whatever, it's a demon. Because the Bible says when you're out of the body, you're present with the Lord, right? But there's nothing is so cut and dried. While that's true, they also have a healing time. even if they have great faith, even if they knew they were dying.
And assimilation.
Yes. And it's almost, they tell me so many times it's like school. It's like,
Yes.
you're going through, you're being cared for, but it's also so many lessons you learn, and then you have to have that life review. That's why we want to try to keep all our business squared away and not have to, because the life review, for anybody who doesn't know what that is you, let's just use you and I, Kat.
Oh, thanks.
With if we meet with you, everything you present to me, you're going to feel how you made me feel.
Right.
And I'm going to feel how I made you feel. And those sometimes are very tough situations, and sometimes really wonderful, lovely situations. So you want to kind of work out anything that you have with somebody that's tough if you can. And you're never going to get the I'm sorry's that you deserve usually in this life. I can't tell you why, but that's just overwhelmingly doesn't happen for people in general.
It's nice if we can manage to give them.
It's very nice, but it's rare, but if you can just, make peace, as much peace as you can make, it's okay either way. And karma does happen. Listen, don't think that anybody's getting away with anything, but
yes.
The little twisty twist is that there are demons, there are good angels, there are as many levels of darkness as there are light. There's so many hierarchies of angels. Well, it's the same thing on the dark ends, it just goes sweep.
Yin and yang.
Times.
Yin and yang.
Yeah, sometimes you are being visited by somebody who has passed because they get to do that. They're allowed that. And sometimes it is not an intelligent haunting, it's a residual haunting. So you're not really interacting with it. You obviously very much feel like you are.
Yeah, you do feel like you are.
It's an energetic replay. And sometimes you are dealing with dark things that want to trip you up. It's just how, this is what they do, so it's a little bit of truth, just like in that saying, there's a little bit of truth in every lie.
Yes.
The truth in all of this, and that's why you have to discern what the situation is, who you're talking to. You have to be careful who you let into your energy, and reading as you know, and
that can be a very difficult lesson.
Yes,
and you can pay a high price for that education.
Yes, and and I say that as somebody who reads for people, but I tell them, listen, I do a lot of work to clear the energy and to make it a safe space for me to do that for people, and to bring connection with their loved ones. I would love to say that everybody has great intentions, but the truth is some people just see the dollar signs, and it, you just have to be careful who you put your trust in, and just make good decisions as best you can. And anybody, I don't care how gifted they are, they're going to want to have some connection. Mark, myself, everybody I know, you kind of think, oh God, I'd love to have somebody read for me, bring through the message or this or that, and we do that for each other and stuff. But overall, I can't tell you, for a while, there was my brothers had been murdered. And so I would go to galleries, I would sit through anything, just thinking, maybe I would get somebody that I don't know would tell me something. And I never did, but that's okay. But I think when people can get those messages and they feel the discernment of it is like, no, that's real. Nobody could know that. That's great. I think that's wonderful. However, you got to be careful if they come end up where like, oh, you have to pay me so much money or this or that, or you have to pay me so much money to clear this or that. That's I would be aware of that, because the dark side knows everything. So they can tell you anything that
they do. And people people lose that. And
About that at all. Yeah.
I have found, I've worked with several investigation teams. I've worked with the ones that would never charge for anything. I've worked with those that would accept donations if somebody wanted to cover gas or, buy a piece of equipment for them or whatever. I have worked with those, and I like working with those that it's like, you know what? This is on us. We are interested observers, and this is for our education. So
Yeah.
the fact that you trust, A, is trust to come into your home
Yeah.
or whatever your environment is. B, to let us interact with something, and that interaction could affect your family in the future. So thank you for believing that we can actually maybe help. And then, the other part of that is that I'm doing my best not to take it home with me. you know, so I am going to be protecting myself against whatever I'm finding in your location.
Yeah.
And I will try to help you with what research and knowledge I have to be able to either clear it, which is not always going to be a possibility
Yeah.
because they like their home too.
Sure.
And especially if it's a familial spirit,
Right.
they're
Yeah.
going to want to stay with you. So it's really a
And some aren't afraid. Some are do it. They're afraid. They don't know.
yes.
They're fear of judgment, or they're just afraid.
And I found some of that is so strong when you do.
Some of them want you to cross them over. So I
Yes.
never banish. I'm not into that. It's not my business to banish anything. Even demons. I've interacted with them, and they've actually been pretty gracious with me. And so I appreciate that.
Gosh, you're so sweet.
maybe it's quite a me. But I don't have any problem with people at all. And I pay people, for readings. I charge for readings, and
Right.
I don't have any problem with that. I just mean, like, when somebody says, if you don't give me $7,000, or it's usually really crazy amounts, 17 or 7,000 or 17,000, or then this is bad thing's going to happen. It's like this fear.
Holy crap.
Oh yeah, but that's something that actually they cracked down on that pretty good over the past few years. But it's fine to charge for something. When I go out on investigations and people bring me in, I'm just there for free. I go for free, and yes, like you said, sometimes they pay your accommodations or your flights or whatever. But overall, like, I do it for free, but like I do schedule readings and stuff, and I charge. Because that's my job. But it's just if it's excessive, if it's ridiculous, or if it's like they're trying to make you afraid and feed off of that, or so needy for the information, and you can tell usually. It's discernment really easy on that one, but so some of it's a little tricky, and some people are not wrong. You're not wrong to be careful at all, and I tell that.
Nobody's ever gotten in trouble by being too careful.
But also, you
Not really.
can't discount anything either. So, just kind of be open-minded and clear-headed as much as possible, which is hard when you're grieving. It's so hard to be that way, because you really don't care who's giving you the information, quite frankly. You just want that connection.
In the moment. When you're in the moment.
Yeah, in that moment. But if they ever get in a situation, I've told you, be careful when you go to investigations and clear your energy. People, if you don't have sage or whatever, and you don't have holy water, you can just get salt. It can just be table salt, and throw some over you.
And thank God for salt. But I have a question for you.
It's so
relevant to this particular topic. I was investigating in a group investigation recently, and one of the people was talking about, don't do this, don't do that, use your sage, don't use your sage. And one of the people made a comment that they never sage and they never clean, because the minute you light that sage, spirits are aware that you're aware of them. And I'm like, they're already aware. They know you're there, and they know that you're there to ghost hunt, right? Or to cleanse the home, or to do what? whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
And I was so taken aback by that. Oh no, don't do anything to cleanse yourself or to calm this area
Yeah.
because the spirits are going to become aware at that point. And I'm like,
That's when you're already living as a victim to them, right? Like you.
right? I mean, no, I'm sorry. You are a lot more comfortable than I am with and it is true with with going into an environment and saying, no, no, I'm
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
and you can't do this. I do it. I do it when I am not on every case, right?
Yeah.
Because
I don't
it's
think
the energy.
the
You have to react with the energy that's around you. Recognize that.
right. You don't even know. Yeah, that's part of the discernment. And for me, that
And
came,
that's practice.
of understanding so that now I can kind of feel that's a human spirit or that's an entity that's
Yes.
human, or that's an elemental, or that is, I tell you, the crow I ate to myself for this. And I've talked to some very famous people, but my mind
Yes.
at the time was just not. I was just like, I don't know about this. When they would say they're speaking to alien, and then here we go, right? So now, because I didn't, the first time that happened for me, it was an intergalactic being, and some people say, well, that's an alien. That's one way to term it, except that there's so many different ones and kinds and levels, and some are nice and some are a little hostile. But I didn't know what to do with that energy. Like,
Yeah.
never.
It's
And
a whole different thing.
it's so different that it's like ticky talk. It's not this, it's not that, it's not this, it's not that, it's not even an offshoot of that. It was
Mhm.
totally different. And I called somebody who was an expert in
Right.
California on this and dealing with it. And I was like, listen, I was walking, letting my dogs out I have a front house and then we have land, back house, and then more land. And so I was at the back door of the front house, just letting the dogs out. Beautiful night. Just the sun was just about to go, just getting that beautiful sunset. And I was sitting there. I had not watched anything scary. I had not watched signs. I had not watched anything about anything. I was not thinking anything. I mean, I just dogs go out and I just, oh, nice. And so this energy, I could see the shadow, the way that the glass doors were. And I turned around and there was a dog toy that was, I mean, at the ceiling. It was way at the ceiling. And I have tall ceilings. It was way
Right.
at the ceiling and it was gently and very slowly, as if somebody was just taking it tip to toe
Yeah.
and very slowly making sure that I understood what I was saying. And it wasn't thrown, it wasn't violent. They were they had my full attention.
I'm
And
sure they did.
didn't interact. I didn't interact because even something terribly scary, I've learned that just like for me, nope, don't interact. Just hold your ground and just see what's happening here.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I knew they were very tall. I could, pick that up. And I didn't feel like they had any negative energy towards me or intent.
Okay.
Just but yet I didn't know what to do with it because I had never interacted with that. So she told me that I had been astral traveling, and and when you do that, you leave a bit of residue,
Yes. You
teal,
caught their eye.
like a teal, crumb trail out there in the ethers of the world. So
That is exactly what it is.
and I had to come in contact with this intergalactic being from another planet, and we had a good interaction, and they happened to be passing through and came to say hi. But when I didn't interact, they just went on their way. They didn't stay. It wasn't a haunting because they earned a ghost and they want it's a totally different thing. So it was just a situation that happened and they left and nothing happened about it except to educate me in a whole nother way and, kind of elevate my learning and connection, as you know, to UFOs and intergalactic beings, as most people would call them, aliens, or extraterrestrials. And I've had some contact since then.
Well,
So yeah.
we're going to go to break in just about 4 minutes, but we do have a question about frequencies. And if you can't get through the answer, we will revisit that when we come back. But Carol said, can listening to 528 frequency within music, can that change the energy atmosphere?
Yes. And I'll try to be quick. Yes. I don't do it personally, but I have been with people who were doing that and doing it in setting, and they were doing it purposefully to call in connections and different things. And I have been there where nothing much happened, but you could feel a change. And I have been there when things happen. So everything's energy. So I don't know if we have seconds or whatever, but anything.
We have about 3 minutes.
Okay, so everything is energy. We're energetic. We're an energy being entity inside a meat suit, to be rude. Yes. So we're an energy. We're a flow. So we don't die. We just change form, so to speak. But all things, no matter what their form or their visual that we can perceive or that they show themselves as, is anything other than different forms of energy. And even if you get into quantum physics, which is strange, can think, but so amazing. And
they're so fascinating.
Proving that frequencies can move objects. Frequencies can change the pattern in your mind. Frequencies can heal. Frequencies
can change the weather.
They can change the weather. And
they're powerful
things, if you even somebody who's like even mildly curious, I think your whole world would open up if you look at how how they have done so many amazing studies just using water, and how the verb to speak of blessings onto something. And you can do that on plants, you can do that with water, you can do that a lot of different ways. Did you hear that noise? Yeah. So my house is so haunted, but with their chiming in. So you can bless something, and then you can talk crash to something and something. But do you know what is the worst damage done? It's not the hateful speak and cursing. It's to ignore.
Yes. That's the most hurtful.
Even exist. So that's why people who are, ignored, or they feel ignored, or they just, and things, animals, whatever, it's worse. The damage is worse than even the bad situation. But you can certainly see the difference. You can see it in water studies they've done, plant studies, many different situations. But yes, frequency can change things, and does affect things around it and yourself. And that's why frequency can, healing, the sound of the healing bowls and different things can bring in, you can clear away negative energy, and you can
that's why I brought one home from Contact in the Desert.
Go.
I did. It's brilliant.
Yeah. So I hope that helped. Yes.
Well, I think it did, but we will be back. We have to go take our break. And I hope you come back and join us too and put some more questions in chat. That was a great one. Thank you, Carol.
Debbie Ziegelmeyer is an experienced diver, dive trainer, and UFO investigator who has researched sites around the world that have water-related UFO activity. We now know that even the Pentagon admits that there are unknown objects in the skies and underwater around the world. Debbie compiled an amazing book to catalog many of these sightings. The Alien Colonization of Earth's Waterways, a reference guide to UFO, USO, water-related activity, has received rave reviews by UFO researchers and the public. The book is available at Amazon.com.
Are we alone in the universe? The most important question facing humanity is on the verge of being settled once and for all. The Mutual UFO Network has been at the forefront of this journey for nearly 50 years. Our members worldwide are dedicated to the research, documentation, and awareness that will shape the future of humanity. Won't you join us?
Unlock the mysteries of the spirit realm with the new book, Meeting Wallace. In this channeled work by renowned psychic medium Larry Costa, the reader will delve into the profound wisdom of his spirit guide, Wallace. Together, they share the transformative journey of harnessing psychic powers from the celestial plane. Discover the extraordinary psychic gifts that have empowered Larry on his path, and immerse yourself in a thought-provoking and awe-inspiring read. Meeting Wallace is a groundbreaking endeavor, and it is a perspective seen through the eyes of a spirit guide. Discover the wisdom of the spirit realm alongside actual photographs of ghosts and spirit guides. Get the book Meeting Wallace by Larry Costa at Amazon.com.
While most near-death experiencers return to this plane of existence with alluring tales of their time spent in the presence of the divine, what happens when one crosses the veil into the afterlife, into the void? In the new book, Dying to Meet Them, Mindy Toutfest describes her journey to the afterlife after a devastating aneurysm, how a strange turn of events would lead her to spiritual growth, divine healing, UFO experiences, and a greater understanding of the universe. Get your copy of Dying to Meet Them today at Amazon.com or visit unxmedia.com for more information on this book and more amazing selections from UnX Media Publishing at unxmedia.com.
Welcome back to Paranormal Experience with Kat Hobson. That's me. I hope that you're enjoying the show tonight. It is such an honor to have my dear friend Teal Gray with me. She is a wonderful author. You can find her books on Amazon. She has collaborated on several. So she has had our friend Mark Elliott Fultz that we mentioned earlier has worked with her on books and done her illustrations. He's a brilliant artist. In fact, I brought a painting home recently from his shop. Um, I'm so fortunate to be able to call this woman my friend because a lot of times she's my mentor also, and that I appreciate that. Mainly, she saves me from things that I go, really, what would happen? What is that? And Teal Gray, you are absolutely somebody that I respect, that I am thrilled to have on with me here in my teeny tiny cottage down by, Gulf Shores. And as far as I know, it's not a haunted one. Depends on what came home with me from the Pensacola Lighthouse weekend. But I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank you so much. I just adore you and I respect you too. And it's just wonderful when, the minds meld and it's a short walk for us to each other because we have very similar lives and have some similar experiences and the things we can really learn from each other and it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. And, what I really appreciate is the fact that if I am doubting something that I'm feeling, which I'm great for helping other people, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I doubt myself in my environment. And that's where I can reach out to you and say, what do you think? Am I missing something? Am I on this? And you're a great support, a great resource, and you help me become more educated.
Well, and if it's we need to get rid of, we get rid of it,
We do. Yay.
And get recentered and you're really, I think this is a common thing with people, especially if they're maybe not so much immersed in all this or know so much, about it or have studied anything, but yet maybe they're, very empathic or maybe they're intuitive, psychic, maybe they're there's so many different things. And I think it's a theme, whether it's in this realm or whether you're gifted as a musician, an artist, anything else. It's human nature to kind of second guess or to be like, well, now I helped all those people and that was great, but now I just don't know though about myself. Like, really, this or that. It's common. And the thing is, think about this. How many people do this with no matter what field you're in? You'll get a number of compliments, but the one negative input is the only thing that gets focused on.
There is a lot of that. And since I'm old and don't give a rat's butt anymore, they're fewer and farther between. So, but I mean, seriously, and it's in every walk of life. If you're at work and a colleague trying to score, this is your work, your report, your facts, your numbers, whatever, that can really rock your world because people.
It's just something we have to get
to. It is.
And realize sometimes, don't take it too personally, which is the most ridiculous thing to say sometimes. I know people
Everything
are like,
it's personal.
And it's personal. Yeah, it's personal. But the thing is, sometimes it's not really about you. They may be jealous of you, envious of you, a lot of things of you. But it's really about their lack is where that negative is spewing out, right? And so you gotta just let that kick back. But that's easier said than done. Don't think that I'm some Buddha sitting here.
You've got all of that. You have no issues, no No esteem issues, no nerves. You
Yeah,
are teal gray, teal freaking gray. Yeah.
but I have a quick temper. You know, I have to stop and think. You know, that. But my first
Would
inclination
never do that.
to think, oh, they don't mean it.
Yeah.
Just let that happen. My first thought is like to, get somebody, snatch them up. But I don't do that, because that's just your soul. As you evolve, you just don't do that. But listen, everybody
We're still human, even if we're evolving.
care what. Yeah, you're still human. And that's just a thing. But anyway, I just, energy is so great. I hope people do go out and study frequency and energy and how that affects things, and the words that we say, even to ourselves, because we're like the most amazing computer ever.
Yes. And our worst critics
Yes,
individually.
no, it's not easy. And boy, it's hard work, but you can help to relieve and put a new script in. And when something knocks on the door that's negative, nope. You know what? No. You just put in I always say put in 3 positive thoughts for something negative, and you just stop it in its tracks. It's kind of like you can have a bad day and one thing goes to the other. You get out of bed, you stub your toe, you're late, all of a sudden, oh my gosh, the car won't start, or I've got to stop and get gas, I'm going to be late. It can spiral, but also you can stop, and for a portion of it at least, you can reset your energy and
Yes.
you're dealing with what's happening. It's not going to always stop what's happening, but you can control yourself and say, no, I'm going to reset the energy, because if it's already this way and it's only 9 o'clock, I can't imagine 9 p.m. Right. And I've had that. I has, and it's just, it does help. It does help to kind of reset that energy, but energy's all it is. That's all it is.
And we carry our own. So if you're being overwhelmed, then you have to stop that, because otherwise you're going to be out of sync, out of sorts. If you're letting whatever's going on get you shifting,
Right.
then
And you can think sometimes, people are like, but it really wasn't me. I had my, game on. And I agree with you, because there's a book, there's many books that are supposed to come out and are coming out, but there's one I've done lectures on, and I call it Sacred Derkos, which is just sacred spelled backwards. I thought I was being witty. Maybe not. I don't know. But in that, through decades of study, it's very interesting to me how energy, if you take it globally,
right.
and everything has energy. Rocks have energy. The ocean has energy. Even, the moon, the way the moon affects the ocean and the tides affects us, and the full moon, the police stations and the ERs are all full, right? When those happen, because it's like, oh, everybody's like, oh, it's moon crazy. It's energy crazy sometimes, and if you add in retrograde and anything else, there's a lot going on.
Wouldn't even want to go to retrograde.
Yeah.
I just got out of one, there came another one, and I'm just like, oh, what was me? Because they're tough.
They're tough, and for some signs, they're tougher. They affect signs more than others. But the thing that's really, to me, interesting is that there's certain places in the world you can get big and you can get small in your area, the world, however big you want to think about it. But for me, the ley lines that go, energy lines, let's say, around the world, what makes something a sacred site that I visit, that people go to these areas and this energy is there, and it's so uplifting. The energy, the vibration, the person that wrote in and had the question about frequency, frequency, vibration.
Yes.
So high, like it's vibrating at a certain level, and it raises you up. So people do have moments of feeling, wow, this is, clouds are clearing away, you will feel that, and people have been healed. Now, again, there's a little wiggle room with that. Were they healed because they believed they were going to be healed, or were they healed because the vibration was so high, it connected with on a soul level and literally changed the frequency and
Right.
the health? I think it's a little bit of both.
I do too.
Because, you can, some people are like, well, you're lying to yourself if you just, say this or that and it's not true.
Yeah.
You say it enough and you focus on it enough and you believe it. The mind doesn't know. This is why they use this, even if you want to take all the woo-woo out of it. Sports medicine, right? They take athletes, especially, they've been doing this for a long time, but they take Olympic athletes even. There was a big study about this one year, and they had them run through whatever sport it was, their routine, let's call it that whatever
Right.
their thing was, and start to finish as if it was real. And what they found when they had everybody, hooked up to all the gadgets, was that there was no difference in the mind to when they were actually running that race or in the rowing boat or whatever their sport is. There was no difference in the brain where it fired when they ran the race physically or in their mind. There was no difference. So
Really?
no. And so that led
I
to,
wasn't aware of that.
yeah, that led to so much, a big jump in that, to where instead of it being something that was like, oh God, these crazy people are doing this or that, right? Because it's always what
Yes.
they count anything until it takes the gold. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, and they're like, well, how'd you do that? Or you ask them, a famous musician, did you ever think you'd get here? And they'll say, oh, yes. Yeah. Every day of my life, I spent so much time, in my mind going, and this is when, they had nothing. They didn't even have a decent guitar. Right. But
I've heard those interviews, and I've always thought that the fact that there was never a doubt,
huh,
they never doubted
you
their
must
success,
be
and it's no matter in what field.
right.
I am familiar with some of those interviews,
Yeah.
and
If you have to believe it, though. The thing is, you've got to feel it. It's not enough to intellectualize something. While
right,
that's great and that can help you uplift yourself and maybe get your mind to a place to where you on things better, it's not enough. You have to literally feel it,
right.
and those athletes, they were every pulse, of blood surging through their body as they ran or as they skated or as they boxed, or it didn't matter what their sport was. It mattered that they were doing it as if it was real. And
Yes.
also there's cellular memory. So there's so many things that feed into all this, right? So then people
Well,
can be like into body mind medicine now. But cellular
we talk about everything.
yeah, but cellular memory, they were having their muscles were going through, and then you remember that positive run, that positive effect. And also people remember negative things and impacts and breaks and sprains and whatever. And a lot of times, if you know any masseuse, people who do massage or massage therapy,
Yes.
ask them how many times, because I've never spoken to one that didn't have a situation to where when they're doing especially deep tissue or whatever, but sometimes it doesn't matter, and they're massaging somebody, and this release of emotion that comes out, and it's just so deep. And then it's like, oh, they don't understand where it came from. Sometimes they immediately know what happened.
Yes.
They carried that. Also, different signs carry different things in their body, whether that's something hard or something beautiful. There's cellular memory. And so that's released. And that's why massage is so good. Sometimes it's tough, and even for 2 or 3 days, the body has to get healed, if you will, from all of that adrenaline and different things running through their body.
I want to stay there for a second.
Sure.
Okay. Because, I had a significant injury a few years ago. And I actually got scared to death at the initial intake hospital because the guy was like, oh, well, you could lose this leg if you do blah, blah, blah. And it was like nothing I could really control about doing blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, ah. And I went through physical therapy. I went through all this stuff, but in my mind was this man saying, you can really lose this leg.
One negative.
And
that negative verbiage.
Yes. And so fast forward, I was on an exercise bike at home and by myself, which was not really when I should have been on an exercise bike. But my leg, which was not supposed to do a full cycle, did. And it broke whatever was loose, it broke a binding area. And so when I went to physical therapy, my physical therapist said, can you do that again? And I was like, I don't think my body will let me because it hurt. Okay. So when I was doing that, I was really very patient. But I think that my therapy took so much longer because I was terrified.
Yes.
And
yes.
I still today, when I have no reason to baby that side, still do.
Yeah. Yeah. Stuck in your heart. You believed it. And so it's a seed of reality to you. This is totally different, but just go with me here.
I will. I always do.
Giant elephants, right? Huge.
Right.
They could take down the building, right? They can have a very small chain around their ankle and act like they can't move because
they can't.
They could snap that thing in a nothing.
The person that put it on.
Yes. But from the time they were little, or from the time they were afraid, or from whatever, they believed and were beaten, and usually fear set in and trained them to believe they couldn't move, and even the smallest thing is going to keep them down. Well, when reality is there, of course, it's not true, but they believe it's true. And so and still. Now you get some that decide one day they snap, just like some of these reality shows where the people are like to snap.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It comes loose, and then they all this inner fear and rage comes out and things go south. But the point being is it's that negative impacted words joined by fear, joined by the frequency that you were vibrating at that moment. When that came into your brain, you're still feeling.
I was very low frequency at that time because I was heavily drugged. I was terrified. I didn't have anybody with me in the hospital. And, David was trying to get to me because I was in Key West. I was far from his, reach, and he had to get things lined up to be able to come. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, I don't even know how this happened, And so even today, and that I am not a weak individual, mindset wise, but even today, I have to fight this. And I feel like the elephant sometimes, but by the same token, there are other things that I am just like, woo,
Well, I think
it's no fear.
It's the huge, that's why even hauntings, right? Residual haunting. The impact of some things that have happened to people, whether that was an emotional thing to them that they were working out in the house you were living in, or they were murdered there, or whatever, but it was a heightened vibration. It was a heightened frequency, so much so, almost like, how the old cameras with the light bulb would go, right? And it would make the sound, and some of them would smoke, and the light you couldn't see for 3 minutes, whatever, caught it in time, right? That is the same thing. It's moments in time that replay because they were so strong that they're captured either in a piece of furniture or a stone wall or just a house, that whatever they are, or in a brand new building that's never had anything, but something happened on the land.
Yes, which is always amazing.
It doesn't matter. They're not seeing your place. So many times even here, there's multiple different hauntings here, different things, but this almost backing me up to quite soundly. But it's so many different things. Sometimes they don't even know I'm around, right? They're just doing their thing.
Yes.
And been at least 100 years ago, that there used to be a very old, 2-story big white farmhouse here that burned to the ground. And then happened for a long time. The Goodnight Loving Trail passed through. I used to have a running creek behind. Now it's seasonal creek kind of thing, because everything's built up around it, and so now it's not. I still have part of the creek bed behind the back of the property, but it's not flowing anymore unless it floods, and then that's a whole other thing. But that was part of the Goodnight Loving Trail. So a lot of things happened on this land prior to these 2 homes that were built, decades later, right? And so sometimes they're seeing what they're probably walking through the big old mansion. And because sometimes they're not affected by me, sometimes they're interactive, but a lot of times they're just doing their thing. And so that happens. So people don't understand sometimes, like their house is brand new. Nothing was ever there before, but something was always somewhere before, right? I'm really into dinosaurs, love it. I think because I grew up, actually, that's the one in Texas. He found it. So I think to myself, even dinosaurs were around. You know what I mean? People think, in North Texas,
There's still skeletons up there. I mean, go north of you.
Oh,
they're everywhere.
My grandfather, like I said, he found one up in West Texas, and I would love to buy that land and dig that up. But we'll see. I have to write some more books. But but anyway, it just doesn't matter where you are. Something or somebody has passed through there or is under the ground, and you don't even know it. Who knows, right?
And who knows you too, because that's kind of fun.
Yeah. So it all affects things. But anyway, just to quickly wrap up the ley lines, because you had asked me earlier about sacred sites.
Yes.
And I have some favorite sacred sites. Of course, I think everybody has their own. But what may, I started to think, but why? Why is something where people, like, Chalice Well in Glastonbury.
Yes.
Okay. That is a really interesting space because it's right by Glastonbury Tor, T-O-R. And that's all some people want to call it folklore. Some people call it truth. Some people call it history, whatever you feel comfortable with the verbiage. But that's the old thing that goes back to, the Knights and the Round Table. And they think that Chalice Well, they believe that Jesus, cup that Jesus drank out of was put in the well. And in that well. So there's a lot of stories, a lot of history. It would take too long go into, yeah. Oh yeah, and there's a lot of things to back that up, quite honestly. Let me see here. I don't want to tell you what, but if you kind of go through something like that and you're like, well, what makes that place the best, right? What makes that place so important, you know? Well, because the energy and maybe some sacred things were put there, but people have been healed. They have pools, you know, they have water. Did I drink it? Yes.
Not, I mean,
They have little spouts and wells, you know, where you can drink. You can buy water from there. You can go into. They have a pool, if you will, and it's just like a little small, you know, pool. But they have the handrails and everybody. So, and anybody in any state, you know, you can come with your wheelchair. There's ways you can get to the water. Is what I'm trying. And people do. And gosh, there's been a lot of healings there. And there's a lot of history and a lot of belief. And there's a lot of stuff that's like pretty darn sound with that, you know. So that, I think that Rosslyn Chapel, you and I both been there.
Roslyn was the area around Roslyn.
Mm-hmm.
The whole, you know, I told you, I think that I had watched them with my friends. We had gone down the path behind the chapel,
Yeah,
going toward the castle.
mm-hmm.
And that whole area is mystical.
It's
And
mystical, and you can feel it.
you can.
Feel
It's in your heart.
And there's so many mysteries there. You know, that place is really interesting. Even if you can't visit there, you know, I've written about it in, you know, several books, but I think Spirited Tales, definitely I write about places in that one. And it's really interesting to me, though, just to pull back for a second, is what makes a place all consistently, not just hit and miss,
Right.
years ago or 1,000 years ago, but nothing. Consistent, week to week, day to day, month to month, century to century, blah blah blah. So many healings, so many, beautiful things that have happened, and then on the other end of the spectrum,
Yes.
so many dark and violent things have happened in places and continue to.
Yes.
Even then, you have to really dig and research to find out what was there, because nothing's happened in a long time. But why did something so bad happen there? Well, you know what? The blood's probably still running from the last thing that happened there. It's darkness and light, but you can't have light without darkness. You know, it's just part of life, and it's part of all spirituality. But it's also physically, in my mind, part of these places, these sacred places, or these places that are doomed, right? They're like really consistently bad. And
well, I have a question.
Yeah.
When it comes to sacred places, there are all kinds of theories here and there and out and about and things that are not quite maybe what I would agree with. But as a rule with sacred locations, is there always going to have been death or blood involved, or are some of them simply because they're in holistic area, or is there a need for there to have been trauma or drama, that kind of thing?
That's a good question. So let me say, and then I'm going to go back to your question. There is also something that can be done magically by you can create energies and entities. You can do the magic and create them.
Like a topa?
Yeah.
Okay.
And our fetch, lots of things can be creative, right?
Right.
So just put that, just not necessarily part of the answer, but just that, just a little on the fringe, right? Things can be creative, good and bad.
Right.
So to answer your question, because so many things have happened through the century, I think there's a little bit of bloodlust and, envy in every spot in the world, right? I mean, so many things have happened.
Well,
Even
because no place is virgin. People have been all over the globe since its creation, since its origin.
right, and so many things where they thought, oh, well, only this culture's been here and only this culture's been there, and they're finding out, no, that used to be a different setup, and there were bridges and the land connected, or there was different things. So they're finding through all these discoveries of different bones and different things that it's shaking up everything that they believe. I've always cultures moved everywhere, but I'm pretty open on some things. I'm really shut on stuff. But I think that a lot has happened, and if you wanted, I think even the blood of dinosaurs, even the blood of anything through time, even plants. I mean, plants scream when
Yes, they do.
people don't think so, but yeah, they're alive. They scream, and so you've got all these things, and the plant system. Just to take one step out there too, if you look at the root system in forests and plants, or even in your backyard garden, if you do a little study on that, you'll find the roots are they're like a telegraph line.
They're connected.
Starve themselves to nourish something else. They will also talk to each other and let each other know, hey, I'm being invaded by this pest, and then something will send this scent out, or they will themselves, but sometimes they need help. Another plant will do it if that plant can't, and come back and chase away what's bothering it. It's really, really intense and connected. So even the root system is alive, connected, and moving everywhere.
Well, if you look at the baobab trees or Joshua, a better example would be Joshua trees.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, they are, if you damage one, you kill the grove, basically, because they are correlated. They are attached and together.
Yeah. So yes, I think that it's a little, this is my opinion. I think it's all a little bit of the package deal. I think that some, I think it's a magnetic situation, a positive, negative, if you will, situation for poles and magnetized parts of the thing that just are either positive or negative, and they pull positive or shoot out negative, if you can go with that. And so you have those little earth magnets doing their thing. Meanwhile, you've got people believing or people damning.
Yes.
That energy working with that. And then you add one person to have a miracle or one person to be beheaded, and you got that energy for those places. So people
that would do it for me.
Yeah, people come believing, and people. So I think it's for me, it's a big snowball. I think it's a little bit of everything, but I do think that it starts out, and it is the core, literally, of the core of the planet with its positive and negative effect.
We have a question, and I know my answer, but I'm going to ask you yours. Could elementals be involved with the tree roots, like with the Joshua trees, with the vegetation, like the different corn plants in your garden, kind of thing?
I have an elemental, which Mark Fultz is not scared of anything, but he will not. He's like, no, ma'am, no, thank you.
He is completely nope.
Like he said that my elemental is terrifying, but you know what it is? It's so old, and he's mentioned that too. It's so old. Yes. Obviously it's an elemental, but there's some that are they're so old, ancient, that the visual of them is a bit distorted, and so that can scare you, right? But I feel like elementals are part of, the core of everything being blessed and or darkness brought in. Because there's elementals that are good guardians, and then there's elementals that
We'll take it down.
And now let me just say, they're darker, but that's not good or bad. And there's a lot of religions and beliefs that some people, that's evil. That's it. No. I mean, it might be dark things that happen there, right? But it's not one to the other if you get down to the root of what it is. It just is. That just is. Like, that would be like saying, I want that crocodile to act like my pet poodle.
Yes.
It's crocodile.
Well,
crocodile.
yes.
And that's your pet poodle. That's not going to happen. But that doesn't make the crocodile inherently bad or evil. He's just doing
just a crocodile.
What he is. So they are the essence, the deep core, early beginning essence. I mean, go away, get into your Tolkien mindset on that. But they are earth, and yeah, I think they can affect, and I think that they can be called in when some things are not going well. I think that here's the thing: if people think that good angels even are the cute cherubs, there are cute cherubs. That's the thing. But if you think that that's the warriors that are out there battling the dark side, no. They're terrifying. They're big, and they can be very scary. But think about it. You think they're going to send cherubs to battle the darkest demons in the world, or Satan? No. And also, Satan was the most beautiful of all of the angels. He was the shining star. Gorgeous. He doesn't always come scary. He can come beautiful, because that's the point.
Well,
yeah. So to answer the question, I've gone off on 5 rags. But yes, I think that they can affect it. And what was your answer?
My answer is that elementals, in my opinion, are here to protect the earth itself. Mm-hmm. And the follow-up question was that that Yolanda had heard that they're here to make sure we don't, as humans, destroy the earth. I don't think that, I think with some of the tools that humans have created that could possibly destroy the earth, elementals would need the help that would be offered. There's more than elementals who protect.
I think they're in season with each other.
Yes.
Dark, right? Yes. But we've seen, and of course it's covered up, but so much of it's come out, recently more and more, where military operations have had their bombs or whatever shut down.
Yes.
And they can't answer for that, right? So I did that. They're like, well, it must be the aliens. But we don't know. That's a real easy thing to throw out there.
Yes, it is.
Terrestrial. But in my book, which is not out yet, so you have to
but it will be out, and you need to buy it. So
to say
anything by Teal Gray, they're all great. Yeah,
the extraterrestrials are not in unison with the elementals, and who's to say? In a further way to look at it, and very interesting connection, I think that there sometimes are literally angels.
I believe that.
I think it's verbiage, and I think some angels look like what you expect them to look like, and they're going to show you or not show you whatever they want. But I sometimes think that the whole thing is very connected. I mean, you go back into Renaissance and even paintings, there was no internet, there was no cut and paste, there was
it was what it was.
Caves, you want to go back before they could paint cave art, right? But in the Renaissance, they show what is very similar. I don't know what else you would see it as, as a UFO, and I didn't, flying objects and lights coming down. There's even battles talked about that were fought, right, and painted. I mean, it's just a lot to say. I don't think we can really put certain things in a box so easily.
Well, the box has to have been open to put things in it. And as you said, there was no global communication. There was no global travel. When a lot of this art depicting these things that we don't have visuals on now.
Well, I mean, ancient aliens, some people they're like curious about. You can look at, but I mean, well, not some of it. I know some of it goes out there a little too far, but some of it, if you just look at the historical places they go to,
Yes.
and the caves and the drawings, I don't care like how skeptical you are. Explain it to me then, how this was made, or the pottery was made, or this was made, which very much looks like base gear,
Yes.
You've got the DNA code questions, because I understand, believe me, some people are like, no, that was the symbolism. I get all that. But there are different things where the code, many people have some pretty good ideas about code being messed with, our DNA,
Yes.
Think now is saying that, oh, well, where we thought nothing was intermixed, oh, well, man, there's Neanderthals and this and that mixed, and whoops, they did. I mean, you really, science, and I love science, but so many of the time they just put everything in the tiniest little realm.
Well,
And
it's
that's
because they have to have a package, okay? It's because of humans who have such a struggle with coping with things that are not neatly tied with a bow. And scientists, rocket scientists, environmental scientists, geneticists, you name it, everybody wants something that is neatly wrapped and tied and pretty.
But they've even said several years ago, they would poo-poo anybody who felt like, gosh, it's kind of, I think it's in the blood, I think that my ancestors, did this and that, and I'm
Yes.
do this and that. And now, then, oh no, all y'all are crazy. And then they're like, we have a breakthrough discovery. We now feel, and that, you have generational, just like we were talking about cellular memory. You have generational memories, ancestral memories from their experiences in your DNA, and that's put there for survival.
And that flips people out.
Of course.
Because how is that possible? Because, genetics, and we're all humans, and we're, so few, variances, whatever. Well, no, because there are diseases that are specific to race. There are diseases that are specific in that nature. There are genetic issues that are regional, regardless of race. They're regional. There are, like, the blue people. The blue people was because of what was in their environment. And, there's things that happen, but it's just really amazing to me that we can't talk about those things either.
Right. But now somebody will do that. Perfect. The thing is that it's stuff that everybody who's really in the know or think about it, whatever, we've known this for a long time. They're just but it's nothing, we're no more different than and I think we're very, I think everything is equal, so to speak, and so.
Well, I think that,
and that
I think that too.
Fight or flight, there's different things that are wired into us to keep us alive as a species.
Yes.
Now, they're different for different species, perhaps, the way it works with their brain, but it's really all the same thing. And ancestrally, they know that crows, even through generations, teach
Yes.
speak, hey, these people are good, or these people are bad, whatever.
Yes.
And they'll recognize and remember your face, so they know who you are and point that out, and it's like a story that's being told. They have
It
their own.
is. And if you don't believe that, try feeding birds,
Yep.
because they will bring their young and they will bring their community to your house.
They will. But also, if you have what they call, it depends on what energy you're bringing. Some people who really want to connect that way,
Yes.
they're so terrified or put off by these people. And sometimes they'll say, oh, they got a cat energy, or they got a dog energy, or they got a whatever. And the animals are responding to that unseen energy that we put in our aura. They can see the colors of our aura, so they know if we're upset, they know if we're sick, they know. Think about how times, like your dog doesn't know that you hurt your foot or you got something wrong in your ankle or your knee, and even a stranger's dog, even somebody else's dog, first thing they go to is your wound, right?
Yes.
First thing they go to is something
It's freaky.
That's hurting. And it's because they not only, I'm sure they can smell it, something different, but I think they see the color differently. And
Yes.
they know, but I think it's really.
And if it's a dog who loves you, they will not leave you.
That's true.
I mean, because if you're injured, they will fight to be with you.
Even if they're a Chihuahua, they think they're 10 feet tall,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have another question. And this is relevant to like alien energies or not. But when we have so much activity happening, and I noticed as we were going into COVID, prior to lockdowns and stuff of that nature, I noticed that there was an awful lot of paranormal activity. There was an awful lot of negative angst energy just pumping out like from a industrial plant. There was so much happening. And then COVID hit and the energy shifted to fear.
Yeah.
As well as anger.
That word, fear, it's a level of operation and frequency.
Yes.
So when you're operating out of fear, it's a lower frequency, and you're not, until you can get yourself above that, till you can get yourself higher, firing.
Right.
You're going to be able to get what you need. You're not going to get the help you need. You're not going to be able to get the money you need. You're not going to be able to get the things that you feel like, this is when I'm desperate. I really need it. I'm desperate. The high energy vibration that brings in the cash. Have you ever noticed when you don't need money, got more money than you, and it keeps coming in, but oh my God, really needed it. I couldn't get a dime.
Well, I mean, if I really needed it, I couldn't manifest that for love nor money, right?
But because you weren't operating on the right frequency to bring it in.
Yes, because you were in the eek. You're clamping down, which closes you to it.
Right. And it's just the way it is, you know?
It is.
And, I'm people will not like me saying, a lot of people don't like, I don't see a problem with prosperity at all. I don't see that changes anything about who you are spiritually. Because how are you going to help anybody if you can't even help yourself, right?
Exactly. But I also think that your attitude toward that has something to do with that. Because if you are living in prosperity and yet you choose to not do what
you're supposed to,
you can, then I think that that gift is taken from you and given to someone who will.
Yeah. Oh no, there's definitely the greedy people with the golden faucets and toilets and stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. But it shouldn't be looked like money is evil. You know,
Right.
you're
No,
gonna
it's not.
whatever
Money is,
relationship you think you're gonna have is what you're gonna have. Pretty much. Like if you
it's
think,
a wonderful gift because you can help.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I'd like to help a lot more if anything wanted to come my way. But I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
if you're doing the right thing, then you can. I do want to mention, we were talking about frequency and vibration and everything else. And I do not endorse apps or anything of that nature normally, but I'm going to suggest the frequency app because it's very beneficial. You can use it on any device, and it's in the App Store. So, or I'm sure it's in the Google Store too. But study what those different frequencies do for you.
Yeah.
Learn before you just running rampant through them. Read what they do. But frequency is a good thing.
It can.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
There's a lot of work and study people can look at in there, but to just really go back really quickly and answer the question succinctly is, I think that yes, there was a lot of frenetic energy, and which when you get a lot of energy, when it's the storm, which is what lightning, pound, energy, right? You get more paranormal activity because you're giving that something to ride on. You're giving it
yep,
something
yes,
to carry out, right? So yes, there was a lot more of that. There was a lot more sightings, and everything, and then the dark things happened. But then it was like, what took so long? There was a lot of good things that came out of it.
yeah,
Trying to make the best out of the worst things possible. And that's why people always ask, well, why does it take so long? It's even in the Bible. The line with him was like, what took you so long? He was like, it was like 4 years, right? And he's
right,
like, Ray, what took you so long? And he says, I'm sure it's not put out, but he says, listen, you have no idea what I had to battle to get through, to get to you.
yes,
That's because people don't think about how the earth, darkness travels faster because it's already here.
yeah,
And so it's said to be roaming the earth looking to the bow. It's already here. So
yes,
good higher vibration has to break through and fight to get to and work out anything good. It's not as instantaneous as something. And that there is a difference to it.
yes. Well, we are almost out of time. I can't. Why does our time always go so fast? But
or for any of those stuff, but next time maybe.
well, also, I'd like for you to come back and talk with me about CERN.
Oh, sure.
Don't you think that would be a fun conversation?
Great. Yeah.
Because I love your insights into everything, but B, I don't know anybody better to ask.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So we will talk about that. And it's something that I think is way cool. And I want to thank everyone in chat because that's been a wonderful flow of conversation in there. And I think that, there's a whole lot of this divine interference. All the good things come from Father God, and I do think that he helps those who help themselves. Because if you're just sitting at home and asking, please give me a lottery ticket that's going to win, if
Yeah.
you don't get it, it's not coming.
Yeah.
And so,
I believe in God, you know that.
I do
But
know that we're both religious people, and we're both faith-based people.
Yeah, you got to pick up that blanket and walk. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta help him help you. Everything is a miracle, but don't make it something that's impossible for him to help you with, or her. But I have enjoyed you, my friend. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So, for everyone listening, thank y'all so much for joining us. I know you've enjoyed Teal Gray as much as I have. I want to thank everybody in chat. We've had some great questions, some great conversation over there, and I just appreciate everyone. We will be back. I will be just having a large time with Mike Ricksecker on Sunday, the 25th. So be sure and join me here on Fate. And meanwhile, everybody here on the X is a fantastic host. There's not a bad show amongst them. Be sure you enjoy them. And meanwhile, we're going to go to Clyde Lewis. So enjoy everything, and we will see you next time. Same cat time, same cat channel. Thanks for listening.